Hello and welcome to the European Research Showcase. My name is Sam Langford. I'm the coordinator for the Global Science Show, helping put together this event all day today and tomorrow as part of Intersections 2023. We have video content that has been going out all across TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, X, and YouTube, where we are showcasing researchers from across the European Union to tell us who they are, what they do, and why it's awesome. And I am delighted to be joined by yet another incredible person to find out who they are and what they do. Say hello to Dani Crowley. Hey Dani, how you
Hello.
doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. It's the middle of the day for me right now, and I'm on coffee number three, which is not too bad. It's not too bad. Um, I'm going to open up with a question that I do for all of these, which is, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I'm Dani. I'm a marine zoologist and a science communicator. So at the moment, I'm the education officer with the Linnean Society of London. So yeah, that's super cool. So I'm mainly focusing on like education for young people. So kind of all through primary school, a little bit beforehand, and then afterwards, like into secondary school, like up to A levels and beyond. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm pretty new. I've only been there about 3 months, but it's going really well so far.
Yeah, 3 months is like very new into the role. How are you finding it so
Yeah.
far?
Great. Everyone I work with has been brilliant, and it's just really been nice to, like, the society is amazing. Being able to work someplace that's so historic and be able to have access to the collections that we have, and just the range of speakers that come to talk to us and the kind of science that's being done by our fellows, and being able to be involved with that, that's awesome.
So, how do you end up in that line of work? It's a very specific organisation to work for, an incredible one to be working for, but coming from that marine zoology background into education and outreach, can you give me an idea of that journey you went on to get there?
Yeah, sure. I guess, like, for me, I really became interested in, I mean, I think a lot of scientists are interested in science communication anyway, because that's how we, either as kids or before we go to university, end up becoming interested in science. Like, it's through the people who do that kind of outreach. So for me, I really got into it via the student paper when I was in UCD in Dublin. So I wrote for the science section. I was then the science editor for a while. So being able to take like really quite complicated topics and to be able to make that interesting to just a wide range of people, that really just it just like it became a big passion of mine. Because I know definitely like, and especially it's really interesting now, like I think I'm interested in zoology and like marine biology, but I'm interested in so many other different fields. Like I think physics is amazing, but I don't have the knowledge to read, say, a physics paper. So someone who's able to distill all those concepts down and tell me why that's really cool. It's great for me, I think, just as another scientist, but I think it's really, really important for just the general public. And I think with kids and like young people, a lot of them have that interest in science already. So it's maintaining that interest and like keeping them engaged all the way through. Because I think sometimes people drop off along the way, like especially into their teen years. So at the moment, we're actually recruiting for a youth panel to distribute a grant that we have. So it's the Our Local Nature grant. So it's to get like teenagers to decide which youth-led projects about nature and conserving biodiversity should get funding. So that's something really cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Um, yeah, so I think doing stuff like that, it's really good for them and for their careers or their interests as they go on. But I think as well for parents and families, like I think sometimes people might not want to listen to me tell them about why, say, conserving biodiversity or mitigating climate change is important. But they're much more likely to listen if their kids go home to them and say, like, oh, I learned this really cool thing. This is something we can do. So yeah, and as well, like I think like a lot of scientists in general, I'm a big nerd. Like I've done a lot of projects. Like one of my recent ones was a podcast with a friend of mine, Sam, like doing a podcast about different biologists and what they might work on if they were in Middle Earth. Um, so I found like my master's thesis was on how the perception and culture that we have in the UK and Ireland impacts the research we do on sharks. So I think from that's an amazing science communication avenue, like to be able to take something that people are already interested in and use that to weave science in. So we've seen people do that, like with Jurassic Park and genetics. Like I think Jaws and sharks has been a great one. I think in I know for myself, like I started reading and learning more about fungi and mycology because I like The Last of Us. So being able to do that, and especially with young people, that's really exciting. So yeah.
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of really cool stuff in there, like, and getting to where you are has been impacted a lot by like people around you. It sounds like so.
Mhm.
In terms of, here's the question: um, you mentioned young people getting interested in science because of people like you and me who are science
Mhm.
communicators. Who was that person for you? Or do you
I
know?
think I'm going to be kind of really boring and non-original and saying like it was David Attenborough and like Steve Irwin. They were the main ones. As I got older, like as I was starting to read more like popular science books, kind of geared towards maybe teenagers and adults. Like I think people like Helen Scales are doing amazing work. But that actually leads to one of the events that I helped run at the Linnean Society. So we ran some queer ecology talks and kind of walks around our building and around the parks in collaboration with Royal Parks. Um, so for me as a queer person, it's really important to be seen as kind of like, okay, I'm a scientist, but also this is something that's important to me. Because I think the kind of visible scientists that we have and the visible science communicators can sometimes be quite from, let's say, a small range of backgrounds. So for me, weaving that in has been really important. And I think also it's a different way to engage a different group, like a different audience. Like I think sometimes in science communication, we focus too much on people who already have an interest in science. But it's like, okay, but how do we get people who might not be interested in science per se, but might be interested in the way that like science has been impacted in, say, queer history, and how does that intersect? Um, so yeah, that's. I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. It absolutely does. That because that my two people would have been exactly the same. It is Attenborough and
Mhm.
Steve Irwin. I'm a zoologist by background as well. So, but I fully agree with you that there are other stories to tell and people to hear from, and
Mhm.
like the movement for queering science communication at the moment is just really exciting and so much of
Mhm.
it going on. Whether it's there was the recent book that was released on it, or initiatives like what the Linnean Society have been doing, or the Natural History Museum have done
Yeah.
similar things as well, which is just really fantastic to see. And it's the sort of thing that if I see it, I want to go, I want to hear, and
Yeah.
I want to engage with it. Um, so yes, absolutely did answer the question. Um, a question I ask everyone, and it always seems like there's a similar answer. What does an average day look like for you? Basically, is there an average day?
I mean, the one thing that I think links every single day is that every day I check my emails. So at the moment, like we're working on the our local nature grants, so getting like the applications for that are open. So just making like all the admin stuff for that was up and running. Trying to do a big push to get a lot of interested teenagers to apply to be on the youth panel. So it involves a lot of so I got to make TikToks for the first time ever in this job. So trying to use social media to find new ways to showcase what we're doing and also to get like interesting science tidbits out there. We also run workshops for primary schools on different topics, so like life cycles, classifications. So they're really fun to do. They really kind of break up the day a bit, kind of bring something new and interesting to the role. So yeah, it varies all the time. It really depends what we're up to. Um, but yeah, I mean, the main focus is always what kind of science is happening right now? What are we doing? How can we get people engaged in that and think that's cool and interesting and fun, most of all?
It sounds like it's a great job. It sounds like you're having
Yeah.
a lot of fun with it so far, which is like just it's really refreshing to hear when people are just so passionate about the role that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, two final ones. The Youth STEM panel. There are so many amazing young people that are working
Mm-hmm.
in particularly the climate movement at the moment. Like
Mm-hmm.
the one name coming to mind in terms of nature is Dara McAnulty.
Mm-hmm.
The, how has the uptake been in interest for people to get involved in this panel? Because it seems like there's a lot of young folks out there doing a lot of good stuff. But I'd be interested to know what the uptake's been like.
Yeah, well, I mean, the panel applications have only just opened,
Okay.
so we don't really have the numbers just yet, but we're hoping, hopefully we'll end up with like at least six. So if more than six could apply, that would be great. But yeah, I think it is really like we know, I think we talk a lot about climate anxiety at the moment and the fear people feel. And I think that's useful to a point, especially when we're talking about young people. Like, I think we need to start shifting the conversation to, okay, everyone is anxious, but the only way to do something about that anxiety is to actually do something.
Hmm.
And these projects are about looking at your local area, saying like what's something that we can do that is youth led and improves biodiversity or improves outcomes for nature and for people, and is something that can like has a good legacy that can last into the future.
Yeah.
So I think with this panel, it's a really good opportunity to give some young people the opportunity to for them to sit back and be like, I'm taking an active role in deciding which project is going to have the funding to have this great outcome. So hopefully, if there's any teenagers who are interested in kind of climate activism or biodiversity activism and are currently feeling a little bit overwhelmed, like this is something that they can do. That just because I think once you take one action, then you feel much more empowered to take more of them.
Absolutely. Well, our time has very swiftly come close to an end. So the last thing is, if you had like a 30-second pitch to someone, a public audience, what would be the one thing you'd want them to know about the work you do?
I think the work that I personally do is very much informed by my audience. I think sometimes in science communication, we just go, if we throw facts out there, it will stick and it will change people's minds. Whereas for me, I want the public to know that, it's meant to be a two-way street.
Yeah.
I want to communicate science in a way that makes sense to everyone's circumstance, and whether, that's talking about it and relating it to someone's specific circumstance or to something that doesn't even seem like it's science related on the offset. That's what I want to do. So if the public wants to let me know what they think that we can do better, that would be great.
Well, that brings us on to the very end of it, is if you do have any comments or questions, you can leave them below or above, depending on what platform you're watching this on. And if there's anything that we can send along to Dani and the team, then we absolutely will do, whether it's questions or whether it's ideas or thoughts for the future. But Dani,
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you so much for coming along to give us a little insight into the work that you're up to.
Thanks so much, Sam. It was great.
And where can people find you if they want to know more?
So I'm still on the platform formerly known as Twitter for now. So you can find me at aquadan1 with an underscore between the aqua and the dan. I'm at Mastodon on the same handle. So that's where I am for now. Who knows how long that will continue.
We'll see. It might change. Like tomorrow, it might be gone. In a month,
Yeah,
it might still be
and
there.
like the education for the Linnean Society is at Linnean Learning across all platforms. So I'm knocking about there too.
Fabulous. We'll also have some links that'll appear. There they are on the video on the screen. And we'll also perhaps link to the podcast as well. It would be great to get folks to have a listen to that.
Yeah, definitely.
Folks at home, thank you so much for watching along. As I say, please do continue to engage with the stuff that's going on as part of the European Research Showcase, as part of Intersections 2023. There's loads to see, loads to engage with. But until next time, goodbye.